that sort of with that sort of awareness of some state. I've always loved sports. All my life, I love being physical. I took up martial arts at a young age. I started with karate, and unfortunately, I damaged my knee playing football, and it got so bad that I couldn't continue the karate, and had to look for something else. And I'd heard about this Aikido as a quote unquote soft martial art, maybe a bit easier on my body, and looked into it, and I fell in love with it straight away. And I practiced that. By that time, I had originally didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I went to Hotel Catering College in Guildford, but not college, university, Surrey University, and thought that was going to be my career. And while I did a year out in Amsterdam, I used to go to this health club every day, and that sort of kept me sane. I thought, you know what, this is what I want to do. This 62-hour weeks in a hotel is crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And working when everyone else is on holiday. So I ended up getting into health and fitness. When I left the minute I left the university course, I joined a health, at that time, the biggest health and fitness business in England, called Fitness for Industry Limited. They don't exist anymore, but they had around 80 odd health clubs around England and a lot of corporate clubs. So I did my training there and became a manager finally in Gatwick. I was running a health club in Gatwick. And that's where I started the Aikido. 10 years later, I find myself moving to Denmark in 2001. And I carried on the Aikido. And I missed a whole bit out here. I need to give credit due again. I didn't mention my first sensei at all, which is a big mishap on my part. My first sensei was Richard Domfey, 5th Dan. And what he instilled with me was the movement. He's a very good teacher and a very popular teacher. And so I got the typical classic Aikido training that many people have knowledge of in England for the first 10 years. All lovely stuff. And I love training. I love the club. Very, very social, very bonhomie. And I would love to meet these guys one day. I hope some of them are still training. Let's carry on. It was very sort of Zen-like, you know. It was just like what was meant to be. I knew there'd been something missing from Aikido. It felt... Okay, I got sidetracked here, and I went, rather than carrying on with my story, I went into Ushiba, but luckily I did manage to pull it back together. So as long as you listen to the end of the interview, I do answer Mark's question and how did I get to this point. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent now. And I would like to say with this that it's not my aim to disrespect the many Japanese teachers who are amazing in their own levels. And like I say, they were amazing teachers. They just didn't send necessarily their best teachers over straight away. They came later. There are many very popular Japanese teachers around the world, and I don't mean to take anything away from that. But I'm just giving this general consensus of opinion of how this history of Aikido developed in the world. It was so confusing, Aikido. You know, you seem to be doing these amazing techniques that, like you'll see Steven Seagal do in a movie, and they work amazingly in the dojo, and they, excuse my language, don't work for shit in the street, because they require, for the most part, some cooperation from the attacker.
Yeah.
Big subject. Oh my gosh. Where do you start? What I said was correct, but that's only in one kind of scenario. The real problem with Aikido are not the techniques. It's not, there's two things to say about the techniques, but first of all, it's about the real issue in most Aikido clubs is the way the student attacks, the attack. It's there's no good timing to it. There's no proper distance. They have no really understanding, like if they had gone to karate training or to boxing to get that instilled in them first, and then go back and says, right, I know how to punch now. Let's move on. Whereas with Patrick, that's very much the case we were doing. And with Nishio Sensei, he encouraged students to actually maybe take a break from Aikido for 5-10 years sometimes, and go and learn these other striking arts, because the assumption that Nishio had is that you're up against the top martial artist. You assume that the opponent knows how to sweep you, take distance. If he sees an opening, he's going to take it. That's the caliber of opponent that you're dealing with, and that is the level of the Aikido and your this first meeting, that you have to have a very high level to deal with good martial artists. So the problem in Aikido, mainly in the world, one is how they attack. Okay, it's not realistic. They're not taught properly how to attack. And that's one issue. And two, the techniques, they can work, and they do work, especially when you have this body conditioning behind it, because then, you can make these techniques work on a non-compliant attacker, because you have such power in your core, and you're using Aiki and all these clever moves and ways of affecting the other person's body. You're building this major center, hara, that if the other person hasn't got the hara like that, the chances are you will have a great effect on them. And often these techniques, we're so used to them needing some cooperation in the dojo, because you don't have this body conditioning in you, and you're not that good to do this on someone that is non-compliant. And in Aikido, for the main part, you do not practice with non-compliant attackers. Therefore, it's wonderful body, martial art, moves that you're doing in the dojo, but you should not call it self-defense or anything, because you're not practicing it to use it for self-defense. A lot of Aikido people will be in as much shock suddenly being attacked in the street as someone who doesn't do anything, because they don't practice non-compliant fighting or anything like that. In some dojos they try to, but like I say, often where they do that, they're using a lot of force and brute force and gung-ho movement, and doing it really fast. There's no Aiki in their movements. What we're trying to do is really instill this Aiki in our body and use it in the Aikido moves as well. Okay, that was a lot to say. See, Oshiba, getting on to him really, all that Aikido knowledge, that came from another martial art called Daito Ryo. And Daito Ryo is an eclectic martial art in Japanese that was really, in the early days, meant for the elite. You couldn't just go turn up at the door and say, hey, can I join in? You had to be invited, or you had the right bloodline, family ties. And because Oshiba was such a good martial artist, he was accepted, and he read, and all this knowledge. I think I'll say here, because this is going to come up. a lot of what I've said up to now in the interview is all stuff from Dan Harden, and he is so good at taking complicated information and breaking it down into bite-sized bits, and he says things in a very succinct and very clear way. And so a lot of what I'm explaining is nearly word for word what he says. So as and when, if you ever go and train with him, you'll find that you will hear a lot of the similar narrative, but he has a lexicon of more knowledge to add to it. What I'm trying to do on purpose is talk layman's language for regular people, because you can get into all kinds of sophisticated terminology and proper historical names and Japanese terminology and so forth. For now, I leave that with Dan Harden. If he could repeat all the same stories I'm telling you with 10 times more knowledge in it. Okay. That I'm talking about is really coming from Daido Ryo in terms of Japan's history. And it's very sad because today the official Aikikai is trying to separate that. No, he came up with this himself, kind of, he's such an amazing person, which he is, but you've got to give credit due where it's due, and the knowledge he got was from really Daido Ryo. And what happened is, after the Second World War, again, as part of maybe this process that I told you about, his son more or less took over. And his son was not a natural martial artist. He was more of an accountant. He was an accountant. And he was sort of like, I can imagine him having a conversation. Look, Dad, we need to make this profitable. We need belts. We need grades. We need systems,
certificates.
We've got to charge money, And this is, okay, we need to come up with some specific techniques. Because what Oshiba did is he took the least lethal techniques from Daido Ryo. There are thousands of them. He only took a handful. And they all had something in common. And that was spirals. They all involved spirals. So Oshiba was up to something else. He wasn't trying to create an ultimate martial art. What he was doing was taking techniques that you could use to practice your body conditioning. It was all about the body conditioning. If you do these particular moves and you incorporate the body conditioning, you're going to get a lot out of your body.
It's Mr. Miyagi.
Sorry?
It's Mr. Miyagi. Wax on, wax off.
And if you practice with somebody else, you have resistance, because it gets to the point where you can. What I'm showing is solo exercises. And this is one aspect of training. There is a whole gambit of training to do with when there's more than one person. And Aikido really started with someone going into something like 6 direction and someone else pressing on them. And for example, if I pressed against my arm, I don't want to press back the same. I don't want to give the force back that way. I want to go forwards, backwards. And so the more and more he presses, I'm going forwards and backwards. And if he releases, nothing happens. Where if I push against it and he releases, it goes like this. So you don't want that, because you don't want to be reliant on this person who's pushing or pulling you. You're doing your own thing in your body, and you're creating these opposing spirals, and you're moving around, creating these opposing forces. And someone grabbing you, you will have an effect on them, but they shouldn't have such an effect on you. That's the idea of it. So they shouldn't have such an effect on you. That's the idea of it. Okay, this is a massive area. I'm really simplifying and keeping things very, very layman terms. But the main thing here, Dan Harden would say, is you're developing this center, and it's all about who's got the strongest center in the room. And if you've got the strongest center, the chances are you're going to win in a altercation, because these muscles all working together are major muscles. It's a massive amount of force and torque that you're able to create in your body. And in time, we're going to cover other areas that make these moves so powerful, which involve rowing and all kinds of things. But it's all about, you've decided to connect to my center, which was a big mistake, because it's the analogy that Dan Harden might use, is that if you imagine you have this robot that's like that machine that drills ice, drill into the ice and spins around. That's such a strong engine that spins around. What would happen if you grabbed hold of those handles while it's trying to spin around and get stuck in the ice? Well, you're going to go flying, and that's the kind of thing that happens with this knowledge, with this body. You're really creating an amazing body, and you're using very, very high level. You're using very high level Aikido martial art techniques that make what you do very, very effective. And this wasn't, it really changes everything. And part of Dan Harden's mission, and a mission that I've taken on as well, is to put Aikido back on the path with this knowledge, because you become an immensely strong being, not some noodler, shall we say. And you can really make, then even these mad, crazy techniques, they can work. The point about these techniques and self-defense is that they can work if you have this knowledge in your body, but they're, for the most sake, they're not the most sensible thing to do in these situations. There's much shorter, direct actions than you can take than some of these flowery movements and techniques that come with Aikido. That's the point. Oshiba created these, started naming these specific techniques. He was quite old by then, and other students took over the training. And apparently there's stories where he comes into the dojo now and then, and he goes, "This is not what I've been teaching," because they started to concentrate on all the techniques, just doing the form and techniques. We need to know Ikkyo, Sankyo, all these techniques, and it was not about that at all. And this is what's happened throughout the world.
Yeah.
The first Japanese teachers they sent over to the West were not the highest, best teachers. They had a very low opinion of us. So I just send Eric. He's been doing it 4 years. He'll teach them something.
He'll do.
So it's very unfortunate. So there are a lot of good, willing. Like I say that, I'm joking a bit. Do not mean disrespect to a lot of Japanese teachers over the years that have contributed to Aikido in amazing ways, but it's like they're just trying to get this set this scene that I understand that they didn't have the best view of us. How would you feel if you've been overrun and your culture taken over? So I understand it to some level. Amazing people in the world who train Aikido, and they do beautiful things with it. But they have been misled. They don't have all the knowledge. They don't have all the information. And that's what I want to help impart in the world, that this knowledge is there. So, a lot of Aikido people will choose to not incorporate it. It's like, as I'm not prepared to relearn a whole new area of knowledge, and then others will absolutely love this. Here's my argument for taking the time to incorporate this knowledge. It adds dimensions to your Aikido. It adds dimensions to your techniques and your fun and pleasure in practicing Aikido. Because if you've been practicing for 20, 30 years, while you're still enjoying it, you kind of been there, seen there, and done it. What new are you doing in the dojo? And now you can revisit everything from how you stand, your initial movement, right through to the techniques that you do and how you do it in your dojo. And start to play with these internal forces and opposing forces and creating these opposing spirals and really creating Aiki in your body. And it will only improve and magnify your ability to practice Aikido and execute these techniques. There are many other reasons why this knowledge didn't make it. You know, it's often in the culture, in Asian culture, especially in Japanese culture, it seems like the sensei keeps information back. He gives it to some students, not everybody. And, you know, oh, you're so amazing, you know, you're so good at that technique, but he hasn't told you something that you need for that technique, you know, so he can do it better than you. It's, you know, that's not how it should be. And the person that I'm learning from is one of those living legends, really. Someone like Morihei Shiba. His name is Dan Harden. He's one of the few people in the world that has a real developed Hara center, completely developed. And he goes around the world testing people, and he's found a few people in China, some amazing Tai Chi people, but for the most part, people haven't got this. He has. And he is a true martial artist, swordsman, amazing person. I am really a lowly student compared to where he is at with this. And we're just learning, and what I'm providing, I'm not just teaching, I'm learning myself and training. And I'll train in front of a camera with nobody there. I have done for many months. There's no one on the other side of it, but I just train anyhow, like there's people there. And then slowly but surely, you know, one or two now, a few more coming in.
Well, the best teachers know that they're students.
Yeah, that's the point. You need not to have your back away from source. We're all looking towards source. You know, if I turn my back and face the class, I'm not learning anymore. You know, that's sort of philosophy of it. We're all polishing this piece of charcoal. Start with a piece of charcoal and we polish. And, you know, that's how my teachers have been. I go, hey, what are you doing? Go away. What are you doing? Look, polish it like this. Do that. Okay, go away. Because, you know, and you polish and polish. And slowly something starts to come. And that's what this work is. It's just a lifetime thing. You know, you can do this to the day you leave this place. Very minor. I mean, when I'm saying polishing this charcoal, I didn't mention that you're trying to make a diamond. Okay, so over time, the analogy of this is that you know, this diamond is being produced, and this is the body work. You just are doing these wonderful exercises and these techniques, and Aikido especially allows you to play with them without getting so much hurt because you have cooperating attackers and so forth. So it's great fun, you know. A lot of Aikido and Daitorio people have a lot of fun with each other, even when you go out, and you can't even sit in a car without start messing with each other, because someone else will start to move in on your territory and try and affect you. I play a lot with my son, you know, kind of pranking him, I suppose, in some way, you know, like I've opened the fridge, he's coming from behind me, and I go into 6 direction, and he goes to get something from the fridge, and I'll block him, and you know, and pretend I'm looking for something else, and he goes, "Come on, Dad, let me in," and I won't let him in. You know, I'm using Aiki and all the body stuff, and he's getting more and more frustrated. You know, it's great fun. What else the sun's for? But yep. So there's lots you can do with this body knowledge, and it's really, you know, it's a wonderful art, and you know, that's what I'll say about promoting Aikido. Okay.
When you are finding that position, you are connecting with source, right?
Yes, this is my main point of this, and what I could see what was happening is, as you get connected in your mind and body, once you start connecting with your body, and especially because since we're creating this center, and many people talk about the stomach being your second brain, you know, we're getting in, you then are basically connecting with your intuition.
Well, I think the stomach is the first brain.
Yeah,
because
whichever, yes.
Well, the stomach is the first thing formed in the
yes,
embryo.
you're right.
right? Everything
Absolutely right.
grows off the stomach, right?
Yes.
And it's in our language, gut feeling. I felt it in my gut, so we
Yes.
we speak it. And the brain is really a transceiver. The
Yes.
brain is transmitting thoughts and receiving information, but that's your brain.
Yeah. I was being polite.
No,
Trying to
no, it's
keep
just one of
people.
those.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's
Um,
one of those things that I came to that conclusion a few years ago, and then it changed the way that I act in life when I
yes.
realized you
So
know.
as you develop this center and begin to put your mind more here, you're more open to receiving communication from your center. And I should say it's very important because this is not just the center, it's the heart area. And maybe for a lot of people, it's more here they feel it than in their center. It doesn't matter where you pick it up. The point is you're making a connection with your body. And when your body starts to realize that you are listening to it, then it'll be more open in its communication. It's the same with any kind of manifestation. That maybe the kami starts putting things in your way in synchronicity, but if you don't act on those things, then it'll all go away again. But if you act on them, amazing things happen, and it's the same with the body. You're improving your communication with your body, then your body starts speaking back to you when you learn to listen to it. You can think of it as another entity. Of course, it's all me. This is all me. This is my identity in this life, and this is the vessel I'm in. But, we have to learn to communicate with this vessel. And you really start to notice, from, like you say, from tensioning, all kinds of feelings. And you can question, should I go down that road? I'm not sure about that. And you listen, and the stomach's going, not tonight. And you go that way, and then you hear on the news there was some fight down there, that alleyway, and someone got hurt. And you think, wow, I was going to go down there.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing by connecting with your I have some stories like that. I've already have them on another video which I'll post. But I have, my intuition has saved me before now. And saved me, but made me avoid a situation that I didn't need to take part in. I'll show that in another video. Your intuition, you're connecting with your higher self. And so because this is about mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
And when you start to combine the spiritual aspect, the training becomes something very special. It does for me. I first of all, I connect with my higher presence. I open sacred space. I do a clearing. And you feel in a very sort of already in a calm, very special place and connection with your family, your galactic family, the elemental beings, everything. It's beautiful. And then you do these body exercises. Okay, I went off track here because suddenly coming into my head was some of the experiences I had recently, which I then go on to talk about with lights in the sky and whatever. But I really missed a major point here. And this was the point also Mark wanted me to get into, which I really didn't. Mind, body, spirit. When you connect with spirit and your higher self on a regular basis, it elevates you. You have a higher level of thought, a higher level of wisdom, latitude, and maybe things come out of your body or things you say or the way you say it. You do it in a much more eloquent, special way because your higher self is influencing you. You're giving you input. And that's really what I wanted to say, make the point of, is when you combine mind, body, and spirit training like this, you feel totally connected in your mind and body, and connected to source, connected to the creator, and you feel, and things come over you. A lot of this that's come about is because of this. I some months ago went out at 2 a.m. and I decided to open sacred space and open my Wirra and connected with my higher self and clearing and everything. And I asked for inspiration from my soul family, angelic beings, entity, especially the elementals, who, for inspiration in this course. How could I present this? And I found myself training for, it was 2 a.m. and it was about 6, 7, 8, 7 in the morning that I stopped training. It got light. I suddenly was doing all these entries of Nishio Sensei, and I suddenly knew very easily how to put in all the body conditioning into those entries. I don't know if even, fancifully speaking, whether, Morihei Shiba and Nishio Sensei came down and helped with that, but I don't think so. I think I need to do a lot more training before they show up. But there's something very special that went on there with connecting with my higher self. I had this wisdom and this idea to make this connection between these entries that I've always been fascinated with and the body conditioning. I put the two together. That came about from connecting to higher self and suddenly training at night. Yeah, just thought I'd tell you that story.
So yes. we speak it, and the brain is really a transceiver. The brain is transmitting thoughts and receiving information, but that's your brain.
Yeah. I was being polite.
No,
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I came to that conclusion a few years ago, and then it changed the way that I act in life when I realized that.
So as you develop this center and begin to put your mind more here, you're more open to receiving communication from your center, and you really start to notice, from, like you say, from tensioning, all kinds of feelings, and you can question, should I go down that road? I'm not sure about that. And you listen, and the stomach's going, not tonight. And you go that way, and then you hear on the news there was some fight down there, that alleyway, and someone got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You think, wow, I was going to go down there.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing by connecting with your intuition, you're connecting with your higher self. And so because this is about mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
And when you start to combine the spiritual aspect, the training becomes something very special. It does for me. I first of all, I connect with my higher presence. I open sacred space. I do a clearing, and you feel in a very sort of already in a calm, very special place and connection with your family, your galactic family, the elemental beings, everything. It's beautiful. And then you do these body exercises, and that is really combining all three: mind, body, spirit. And it's having an amazing effect. You had that lady Helen on the other night with orbs and galactic. I've personally never seen such things until the last few weeks. At night, I'm trained. This has happened 2 or 3 times now. I've gone out at night, and I look up and it just looks like normal stars. And I look at one of the lights or stars, and I'm sending. I start going to Misogi and thinking, connecting with my higher self and feeling a lot of love. and this light starts dancing around. And I first thought it was it's me. It's I'm short-sighted, and I'm doing it by maybe moving like this or something. And it's my imagination. So I was being very, very cynical and very, very critical. So I just looked and I asked, you're going to have to move an awful lot more to prove to me that this isn't something in my head. And it starts really moving all over the place and coming forwards and backwards.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's lens flare or what is being picked up, but when I did some filming, a few friends have mentioned they saw orbs on the film. And they're the same colors that Helen was talking about, a sort of orange and sort of blue one. So that's interesting. So it's amazing, this sort of training. I love it. And I would love to share that. I think a lot of people can get benefit from it. So that's the spiritual, my spiritual people that I think can get a lot of benefit from this, combining body as well into the mind with the spirit.
Well, that's why I wanted to get you on the show, because it's wonderful, and as we are moving into 5D, this will help accelerate things for everybody. Because as you were talking, I was getting the buzz that I get, and I was like, I've got goosebumps everywhere, and I did before we started talking actually, and I just think it's really, really important that this ancient knowledge is coming to the fore, and it's coming through people like us, and that just ordinary people that have had an extraordinary journey to this point. We're not film stars, we're not celebrity magazines pushing. And once you see this stuff, it's once you learn about what you're talking about and things like that I try to get on this channel, you realize really just how much crap is being thrown at everybody all the time, and how useless the education system is, how useless the physical education system is, how useless it all is, and it's all on purpose. Even the spiritual systems and religion, because I think the Council of Nicaea analogy with what happened here is just that's the key to everything. All the knowledge just been hidden, and it sounds like the martial arts guys who keep the secrets are kind of copying. It's like the mystery schools. It's like the secret societies. It's just like hiding it over here for the benefit of a few.
Yes.
Whereas we've all got the abilities to tap into this, and I think it's marvelous that you're sharing it with the world, and I think your personal journey.
What Dan Harden would say is, it's very important that we stand on the shoulders of other people. It's not coming from me. This is not my knowledge.
Yeah,
I got this from mainly from Dan Harden. He's got it from other people, from Dieter Rio. He's an exceptional person. He's had even UFC fighters come to him, and he destroys them. Just they come back the next day. What did you do? They try again and they get destroyed. But to learn this stuff takes many, many years. So you don't see it in the UFC and in mixed martial arts and things, because someone would really, I got to do this for a good 10 years. You sort of have to start from scratch again. So most people, it's tough.
Well, I went to one UFC fight and I walked out. It made me feel sick.
Yeah.
And then you look at people like, there's a big hero in Ireland. He's a UFC fighter. What's his name?
Oh, Connor.
Oh my God, he's horrible.
He's just promoting the vaccine. He's just
He's just a nasty man. And I got asked to do some work for a company that was working with him, big money, about 2 years ago, and I said, "No way, no way." The vibe off him is just terrible.
Yeah.
But then if you look at all the movies, all the great fight movies and stuff. All the Rocky films, for example, are all about getting to this point, but they don't talk about it in these terms at all. It's like, it's the guy up against the bigger guy and something deep inside them and allows them to overcome. And it's really like this continuous hero's journey kind of story. And all the Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan. It's all the same. So it's all the same thing, really, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, that's the, a lot of what I do comes from the sword. And,
Okay, again here, I started saying, about to tell you about the sword, and then I go into something else. So, the point I should have made here is I've been very lucky. One of the common themes throughout all my teachers, especially Patrick, Nishio Sensei himself, of course, and Dan Harden, is they're all exceptional swordsmen. And when you apply this Aiki in your sword, it's something very special. And Nishio is considered one of the a treasure, like a treasure of Japan, especially with his swordsman abilities and his swordsman know-how. And a lot of what we do in training the teachings of Nishio Sensei is very unique because it comes directly from the sword, and he does stuff. These Japanese, they're very, where they've been really clever is, you don't need to learn 1,001 things. You learn one thing and you can put a knife in your hand and do that. You can put a sword in your hand and do that, or you can be empty hand. But you're not having to learn 1,001 things. You're learning one thing. And so I talk a lot about the karate side of things there, but I didn't mention the sword stuff. And then with Dan Harden, it's a whole other level. It's the real sword weapon work. And putting Aiki into the sword. And he doesn't even teach it that often. If you're lucky enough to convince him to do a weapons course, then really take it with both hands and appreciate what he's sharing with you, because he doesn't often share it. And I will only recommend people to him for knowledge like that. I have a rule for everything I'm teaching. I know a lot more knowledge than what I'm capable of actually doing myself in my body. And I'm only prepared to teach the knowledge that I can do myself. The rest I need to catch up myself, or I refer you to the masters and teachers that can do this. That's how it is.
In time, you just use what's very special. What I'm doing, I was very lucky with, like I said, this. When you've got to be careful what you ask the kami for. So I wanted to really get this proper knowledge of Aikido, and I've been on this path, and it's all come to me. And it started first coming to Denmark. I tried some different styles of Aikido, wasn't really suiting me. And someone told me there's this guy called Patrick in Christiania, which is, you may have heard of. It's this famous commune in Copenhagen. When you walk in there, they say you're now leaving the EU. It's the biggest. It's a big hash market in there.
Sounds like my kind of place.
A lot of alternative people. And it took me quite a while to find him. And then when I did find this little door with the tiniest sign you could ever see, you'd never know. The way you ring the bell will decide whether you get in or not. And if you go ding, 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 there's no way Patrick's answering that, It's going to be ching, ching. It's got to be sort of the right, then he opens a window from high up. Yeah? What do you want?
It sounds like a scene out of Doctor Strange.
Yeah. And then you throw keys out, And I ended up with a very good teacher, and he was all about the body work. So it started.
I can't talk much about that, period. It was a very, very special 10 years of training with Patrick. A small group, elite group of young Aikidoka. The camera ran out of battery. So just to finish off, I'm talking about Sensei Patrick Fitzgerald and 10 years in Christiania. You know, like the film What Happens in Fight Club Stays in Fight Club. Well, it's similar with this story. But it was a wonderful time training, and I'm sure I can share some Aikido stories within it over time. Okay, thank you. And I hope long before Dan Harden, but I started to do this body work, and we were following the teachings of someone called Nishio Sensei. Nishio came from karate background and was one of the few Aikido people that he wanted to keep it in the martial art realm. So he's the Bruce Lee of Aikido, basically. Mm-hmm. And people would come all over the world when he's dead now. When he would come to Europe, he'd only come once a year. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people, and a lot of them were not Aikido. They just came for the entries. He had very special entries, that initial meeting of people. And what I'm doing now is I take those entries and I use it to practice the body conditioning. So not only are you practicing body conditioning, you're doing very sensible moves like coming up with your arm through the middle, where I'm not trying to teach techniques or anything like that. But if I can instill in you your initial reaction, where if someone suddenly, bumps into you from behind, where you kind of go into sixth direction and your arms are coming up the middle. A few months ago, a football was coming right towards me. And I didn't see it to the last second, but my hand came up. But it's just coming up through the middle. So there's just some just as your last guest was saying, there's some very simple moves and things you can instill in your body without getting into all these flowery techniques and all that Aikido stuff and other madness. But I just wanted to say that, so that's sort of what I'm doing from the martial art point of view. You're learning something that's very sensible.
Well, it sounds eminently sensible, and one of the gifts of this situation we're in is that we've still got the internet, and you can teach people worldwide how to do this stuff.
I hope you enjoyed the review. My name is Alex from bodyconditioningwellness.com and AikidoBackonthePath.com. Thank you.